Around, don't get caught in the mosh pit. Fuel to the fire, ain't nobody can stop it. Trouble in my city, but you know I'm across it. Got a 40 on my hip and I'm liable to spark it. Throw down these hits, my click is indivisible. I aim, you duck, I squeeze, now you invisible. I'm not afraid of getting physical. All these different chemicals are fogging up my visuals. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Yo, we notorious, we ain't no runners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Yo, we some warriors, they ain't called gunners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Put on my sweat, put on the beat, put on the map, put on my team. Take out every motherfucker in between, know what I mean? Better myself, better my aim, better my rep, better my name. Killing rappers on my hang, I'm by their chains for the fame. Never thought I would it, now I'm running. You don't wanna follow me, now I'm looking for.
What's going on? What's going on? Good evening, and welcome to another broadcast of Steve the Kidney Nurse. I am your host, Steve Belcher. Look, tonight we're going to have a brief discussion on the phenomenon that happens in the United States. And for a lot of people who are on dialysis or who are not on dialysis, they never heard of patients being blackballed. And you may be asking, how can a dialysis patient that goes to treatment 3 times a week for life-sustaining treatment all of a sudden be asked to leave, being kicked out, given a 30-day notice? And then to come to find out all the other dialysis clinics, and you try to go to another clinic, you're not being accepted because other clinics don't have to accept you. Then what do? We're going to talk about that. But first, before I talk about Oral Lomax, the civil rights worker who got a reprieve, right? The doctors gave her 30-day notice, signed off by the medical director and her nephrologist, talking about her behavior. Now, how can a lady like this, you can't see the picture, but if you're on my TikTok, you can see the green screen picture. Matter of fact, how can a lady like that be you would think she's been going there 12 years. And now the doctor and administrator come to her with a letter saying she's being kicked out. And she's like, what the hell going on? But before we talk about this case, PSA, if you're watching this and you're in the middle of this storm that's coming, and you go to dialysis and you're in the wake of it, activate your emergency preparedness plan. And hopefully you have an emergency preparedness plan if you're a dialysis patient. Because if there's a lot of snow coming, the weather, if the dialysis unit have to close, you can't go to the emergency room for dialysis treatment. Okay, because there may be other patients going there as well. But they're going to treat people who the need first. the most emergency patients and then get to you. But if you go to dialysis and you find yourself in the path, that's what I want to say, in the path of this storm that's supposed to be moving across, like the Midwest and parts of the United States, please make sure you watch your potassium, okay? You have a 3-day emergency diet. Now, this is not the show to talk about it because I didn't know this weather was going to happen, okay? But once I get back home, I'm on the road. Once I get back home on Saturday, I'm going to do a show, and I want to talk about all the stuff you need to be prepared for emergency disaster, not just snow, but hurricane, fire, anything that's going to close your dialysis unit down or restrict you from getting treatment. You need to know what you need to have in place. Make sure you got copies of your treatment record, your orders. You have extra supply of your medication. What else? You have food that has low potassium, low phosphorus. You got water, and you got a plan. And most importantly, if there's some type of severe weather where tornado trees are down, don't try to leave your residence unless you necessarily have to, okay? Seriously. So if you're watching this and you know somebody that's in the path of this storm that's on dialysis, send them a prayer, ask them to, they have an emergency preparedness plan in place so they can be safe during this severe weather. Have a radio, a battery operated radio. Make sure you have wipes, trash bags, distilled water, okay? Power might go out. What do you do then, especially if you're on home dialysis? If you're on home dialysis, what do you do if the power goes out? That's where you need to have a backup generator, okay? Now, if you're in the middle of a storm, of course, it's going to be too late to go out and get that. But after this has passed, make sure if you can afford it, go out, get yourself a, as they call it, a bug out bag or to-go bag. Wait a minute, dialysis buddy. I'm going to come back to you. A to-go bag, and be prepared. And if you can afford a generator, do that. Dialysis buddy, I want to bring you back. I want to accept you about 10 minutes. Send me one in 10 minutes. But yeah, so make sure that you're prepared after this storm has passed. You're able to get your treatment records. Make sure you got a backup facility. And just make sure you got a plan in place. All right, guys. So now on to the main topic. Being kicked out of your dialysis unit. Okay. Now, can you imagine, right? Can you imagine if you go to dialysis, you start dialysis, right? Now, say you go there and you have a problem with one of the staff workers. Say someone put a needle in you, right? The wrong type of needle and messed up your access. Do you supposed to just sit there and not say nothing? What if case the staff is totally messing up your access, or it's something you see that's just not right in the dialysis facility and you make a complaint and you know it's not right? You know in your heart that something's not right and you need to say something. Well, this is the case of this lady right here, Ora Lomax, who has since passed away, but from other causes, or maybe kidney disease, but it wasn't because she didn't get the dialysis. Her doctors in 2018, her doctors, okay, the administrator and the doctor, nephrologist, signed a letter saying that she had to leave the facility in 30 days. After February the 2nd of that particular year, she's no longer allowed to come back to the facility. Now, this is a NAACP civil rights youth program civil rights worker. So she's been a civil rights person most of her whole life, if you read this article. So, of course, she's going to stand up for herself. And so you have many patients that something may happen to them, or they see something that they know is not right, and they don't want to say nothing because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to be on that receiving end. Okay. Now, let me give you an example when I say, and they don't have to be a staff member sticking the needle and messing up your arm. I worked at a facility one time, and you have patients that don't show up for whatever reasons. Maybe they don't want to come. They're still trying to adjust to dialysis. They got other things going on. Whatever the case, mental illness. So it was a patient who rarely, come once a week, maybe twice a week, once a week sometime, twice a week sometime. And then she may be late. So patient came in about an hour past their time. And you had the technician, soon the patient came in the treatment floor, the technician going to say, "Are you serious?" I was like, "What?" Now, why would you say to the patient, "Are you serious?" Like she's the problem because she happened to be late. You don't know what this person been through before dialysis. Okay, dialysis patients have lives before dialysis. Now, there's no way you serve a patient and when they come in the door, you make a comment like that. There's patients' rights. You got the patient Bill of Rights. And in that Bill of Rights, the patients are entitled to respect and dignity. Okay? Because of a patient's late for dialysis, that doesn't affect your life. So why are you getting mad? And so in turn, you don't expect a patient, because I know if I was a patient and somebody said something to me like that, I'm late, like, who are you talking to? And so it could be something subtle like that that can spin with, okay? And so that's just one case that I'm talking about that happens. But when you have somebody that talks back or stands up for themselves, now the clinics perceive that to be a problem because they don't want this to get out, especially if you go to the news media, something that's really serious, okay? Then they start saying, "Oh, you become a problem." But in this case for this lady, Ora Lomax, she lodged a complaint. Her issue started, she said, when she lodged the complaint with the state because the social worker was trying to deny her Medicaid for transportation. Now, this lady has diabetes and has amputated toes. So she said she needed the transportation to get to dialysis, to get to a life-saving treatment. That was one case. Then another case, she went through the grievance process. Each dialysis unit, excuse me, each dialysis facility has a grievance process. Okay, they have a grievance process, and that process is out on the patient's lobby on the wall. So it's supposed to be there, okay, along with patients' rights and responsibilities and the grievance process. Okay, now Mrs. Lomax went through the grievance process to have a nurse stop working on her for whatever unknown reasons. And then she lodged other complaints that she's seen, contacted news media. I mean, this lady works for the NAACP, so what do you expect? Especially if you see something wrong in healthcare. So this is the issue here. Kidney disease, okay? Kidney disease is the only disease that is not regulated to where to stop the nephrologist or the unit from kicking the patient out. The only disease. And they know that this is patients need this, okay? It's called involuntary discharge. Now, once this happens, okay, because, it could be anything. You have a problem with the technician, somebody make a complaint, you keep going, you don't show up for treatment, you buck back at the nephrologist, or you don't agree with the treatment plan. Okay, they try to use this against you and say that you're being non-compliant. Now, look, this is just a brief conversation. Okay, Tuesday, join me Tuesday. What's Tuesday? Oh, December the 27th. Okay. 7 o'clock, I'm going to have Larry Keith Hill, a patient who beat the corporations. They did this to him. He lawyered up. He went to court, and he won his case. I'm sorry, Larry Keith Hall. He's going to be on my show Tuesday to share his story and tell you how most people, because this is why you don't hear about it. Most of the people this happens to, truth be told, are Black males between 18 and 44 years old. Okay? I know 2 patients that this happened to. They got involuntary discharge from the unit. One of the guys noticed that a young lady, a new technician, was not setting his treatment right. That's why I always say, advocate for yourselves. When you go in for dialysis, and we know that it's short staff. A lot of places may be short staff, or you may have people coming from another place helping out. They rushing around. They may not even set your goal right. They may set your goal for too little or for too much. And as a result, you may get sick. So this gentleman I knew, God rest his soul, because he's dead now. He was going to a facility for 10 years. 10 years. Knew the staff and everybody. You know how if you're a patient, you go to a unit 5, 10, whatever years, right? You think you know people. You know the facility. You see everything that happens. You're sitting there 3 times a week, and you're seeing everything that goes on. This guy realized he wasn't taking the fluid off, or something was going on, and realized that the technician wasn't setting the machine right. In return, he said something to her, and they got into a verbal altercation. Now, during that verbal altercation, apparently this gentleman suffered a medical emergency, and they had to call 911. As this patient recovered in the hospital, he was not allowed to return to his dialysis clinic. All right. And see, this is the thing. If you're in a place, and this is the effed up part about this, if you're in a city or a town where you only have, say, DaVitas or Fresenius, you don't have any other small company units like, say, U.S. Reno, excuse me, like U.S. Reno or Liberty Dialysis or mom and pop dialysis, right? And it just got a DaVita that's taking up that territory. If you're at DaVita and you get kicked out of DaVita, and there's DaVitas just in that area, you can't go to none of those DaVitas. You're blackballed from the rest of the DaVitas. Now you may have to go across state lines to where Fresenius or another independent unit is to get your treatment. We're talking life-saving treatment that patients need 3 days a week. Now, how is that so? And we're going to get to patients who have mental illness, who may, threaten the staff with violence or a gun. We're going to get to that. But for this gentleman, I knew he wasn't allowed back because he got mad over a situation that a technician messed up in setting his goal that put him at risk for congestive heart failure and having too much fluid on. So now he can't go to any other facilities. He's been, quote, quote, blackballed. So now what? What do you say, Steve? What do you do if you can't go to any other clinic? I'm glad you asked. Now, you don't have no dialysis clinic to go to, no consistent treatment, and the only place you can go is to the emergency room. But wait, there's more. They're not going to treat you. They're not going to treat you until your levels are at critical high. So what does that mean? You say, Steve, what does that mean? Until your levels are critically high. That means you can have on 10 pounds of fluid, but if your potassium is not critical, you ain't getting no treatment. For this person that I know, for him, he passed away because he wasn't getting consistent treatment like you do at a clinic. He couldn't see no dietitian, no social worker, and no doctor. Now, how does something like this happen in the United States? How does it? This is not something that happens on a daily basis. Let's be clear. However, if you're on dialysis and you have a legitimate complaint, technician messed up your arm, they rough with you, sticking the needle in, and we know. Let's make no mistakes. All right. And you could be part of Millennium watching. But we know these new age Millennium kids, whoever you want to call them, they don't give two F's about anybody but themselves. I seen technician tell a lady that could be her grandmother. Lady was struggling to get the oxygen on the cannula and had it lopsided, and the technician tells her, put it on yourself. Where have we gone to? You know, no patient asked to be put on dialysis. They didn't ask for kidney disease. Okay? Now, again, this lady, back to the story, or Lomax, she made some complaints. Her nephrologist and the administrator of Eastern Dialysis, a Fresenius subsidiary, signed the paperwork booting her out in 30 days. What does she do? She does what she always do as a NAACP activist. She got other people involved, her council member, politicians. And if that happens to you guys, if you find yourself on the receiving end of a 30-day notice because you didn't show up for dialysis for long periods of time, or you can't pay, or some type of issue, reach out to the news media, okay, your politician, because whatever happened to the Hippocratic oath, do no harm for the doctors? Whatever happened to that saying, do no harm? So she bitched and complained so much, rightfully so, that she got a reprieve. The doctors say they're going to let her stay 30 more times so they can find a unit. But what would have happened if she didn't do what she did? She would have been another statistic. Not everybody can do this. There's many documented cases of this happening. It's a phenomenon that you rarely hear about. These are kidney warriors. So I'm going to go over what the National Kidney Foundation, all right, there's nobody else talking about this topic. That's why I do these shows, because you may just started dialysis and never heard about this happening. You probably say, oh God, how can this happen in this day and time? Yes, it's happening. And this is the thing. Back before Richard Nixon signed the Medicare Act, patients had to go before a committee to get this treatment. You had to qualify to get dialysis. And if the panel, they called it the God Committee. This is all documented. Life magazine did a story. Look it up. The God Committee out of Seattle, Washington. They determined 7 people at one time determined who was getting dialysis and who weren't getting dialysis. They made these life or death decisions. And now it's happening today. It's happening today. So this is what the National Kidney Foundation, NKF, all right, or $1 million organization that people, and it's rightfully so, send their hard-earned money to the NKF. But they don't talk about this. They got the printed material, but it's up to you to say, oh, let me see what they got. But who's thinking about going to their website looking for dialysis facility complaints, your rights and responsibilities? Again, that's why I'm here. These guys should be doing shows like this. They the multi-million-dollar company, not Steve, the kidney nurse. I'm barely scraping and scrunging. You know, getting the cheese off the plate like other people, the crumbs. But you got multi-million-dollar organizations that got the literature, but not everybody is illiterate to go to their website and read what rights and responsibilities they have as a kidney patient if they have a complaint. So let's see what they say about dialysis facility complaints. Maybe you may not have heard it, but you're going to hear it first right here, Steve the kidney nurse. Because I don't care. You know, I'm for patients' rights advocacy. That's why I'm still doing this. I'm not throwing shade or taking anything away from other advocates who advocate against kidney disease. But we got to talk about the hard topics that really matters. The topics that are taking people's lives. The hard to discuss topics. Okay? No one's talking about this. But I want to talk about it. So it says, your dialysis center and healthcare team are responsible. Now, when you hear this, if you on dialysis and what you hear me read, you think about your situation and where you're at the dialysis facility, okay? I see the comments, and I'm going to go through them. I just don't want to get off of my routine and my train of thought. But what I'm about to read, if you go to dialysis, your mom, your dad, or anybody you know, especially dialysis patients that go to outpatient, as I read this, just think about your own situation and just think back if it pertains to you, or if you seen something that you felt wasn't right. Okay, it says your dialysis center and healthcare team are responsible for providing you with optimal treatment. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, the people that pay the bill, CMS, you know, people just say, I got to get my Medicare, I'm going to qualify for my Medicare. Those guys, that in order to make sure that safety and quality standards are met. If you have questions or concerns about the care you receive at your dialysis center, it is important to know your rights and your responsibility as a dialysis patient. All right. Additionally, you should know that there is a process if you have concerns, complaints, or grievances. That's why you should, if anything happens to you at dialysis, say your dialysis lines clot and they got to throw your blood away with the filter, or anything happened to you during dialysis, document that. You don't got to do it in front of the staff, but when you leave and go home, document, on this day, this happened. the staff said my blood clotted and they had to throw my blood away. And put it in a journal or a log, everything that happens, because you may have to go back to that. Because what you may write and what they may say about the situation may not mesh up. May not mesh up. All right? If you feel that your concerns have not been effectively dealt with, like if you have an issue with a technician or someone at the clinic, another patient or staff, and you went to the proper channels and it still hasn't been taken care of, now you may want to escalate it. Now they're going to think you're a problem. It says, effectively by your healthcare team at the dialysis clinic, then you call the patient advocate at your local ESRD network. Now, let me tell you something about these networks. All right, these end-stage renal disease networks, I think they're like 14 of them or 18. I'm not sure, 17 across the United States. These guys, God bless them and the information they put out and what they try to do to remediate this and all this, but they don't do crap. They don't do nothing. They don't have no power. The ESRD can't tell that nephrologist to care for that patient or the clinic not to kick that patient out. They could give recommendations and have packets and stuff on how to go about the process, but they ain't got no power where they, we gonna do this. They ain't no sheriff where they could tell the dialysis clinics what to do. All right, but it is a process that you got to go through legitimately, right? Call a state, do what you got to do. Then it says, lastly, if you still feel, we already talked about that. So here's your rights. Here's your rights as a kidney patient or your parents' rights or your loved one or your partner that goes to dialysis. This is their rights as a patient. People might say, why are you screaming? No. It's my passion for this. I'm not hollering. I'm not upset at the clinics. I'm not the angry black guy. It's my passion because I know this doesn't make sense and it's not right. It's not right. It's freaking bloody murder. Okay, it's murder. You know, you blackball a patient, right? And then the other clinic, now they got to find the clinic in 30 days. What if they don't find the clinic? What if, because the clinics don't have to accept the patient. They're going to want to know why the patient being kicked out. And so there's things in place to try to prevent the clinic that's kicking the patient out not to say anything derogatory to the clinic, potential receiving clinic about the patient. But no, that doesn't happen. They're going, hey, no, you don't want that patient. I ain't going to accept that patient. They have behavioral issues or something going on at their clinic. I don't want that problem at my clinic. That's going to disrupt operations or whatever. And now the patients, oh, do you have a chair available? No. You have a chair available? No. You have a chair available? No. So how do I get treatment? Where do I go to get treatment if no one is going to accept me? And they know. These clinics know. They have to know if you don't get dialysis, you can die. So what does that tell you? No, it shouldn't, but possibility. It's a possibility. Yes, if you don't pay your 20%. If they want to, they can do that. So let's talk about your rights, which are very important. Number one, the quality. You have a right to receive high quality health care that meets recognized professional goals. You have a right to be part of the healthcare team. You have a right to be part of the healthcare team, along with a social worker, nurse, doctor, and dietitian. Now, what does that mean? You have a right to be part of your team. If you feel like 3 hours, like say, I'm gonna give you an example. If you still urinate, a lot of urine, all right, let's say more than this container. How many of y'all know about this? The liquid seal, the protein drink. But let's say, for the sake of this discussion, using this as an example, you urinate this whole container or a little more throughout the day, and you feel like 3.5, 4-hour dialysis is way too much for you. Or even 3 days a week. You feel like you can get by with 2 days a week. You have a right as a patient to say to your doctor, look, I think I want to try 2 days a week or 3 hours based on me urinating and my lab work. And then so say you suggest that and the doctor say, no. You know how these smug doctors are. Smug as hell. Yeah, I said it. You know how some of these doctors are. They real smug and think they know everything. And if you don't listen to them, they tell you some bull crap. Oh, get yourself another doctor, something like that. And then the patient becomes intimidated and listen to everything the doctor says. But at the end of the day, the patient knows their body, and it says it that you have a right, according to Medicare, according to CMS, you have a right to be part of your hemodialysis team. So if you think something's not right, you feel like you shouldn't get heparin, you should be on a different dialyzer, you have a right to say something to the doctor and the team. Also, you have a right to expect that staff members in training will be directly supervised. How many of you guys that go to dialysis, or your parents or your loved ones, and especially people who go to dialysis, you go there, next thing you know, you see some brand new face that's in training. And they over there working on you, and the person's supposed to be supervising them nowhere around. And they sticking the needle in and damaging your arm or doing whatever, trying to put the needle in and can't get the site, and you going through the agony of pain unnecessarily. You have a right. If you have someone training, working on you, expect that staff members in training should be directly supervised. Now, again, this is the only one. And people wonder, like, how these companies making millions. Millions. You have a right to information. You have a right to receive information from your nephrologist or kidney doctor in words that you can understand. So the kidney doctor saying something to you that you don't understand, ask them to break it down so that a 5-year-old can understand it. Don't be using these big medical jargon words that you like, what the hell does that mean? Break it down to where a 5-year-old can understand exactly what you're saying. This should include information about your medical conditions, treatment choices, test results, and possible problems. If this information cannot be given to you directly, the doctor should speak to your family or the person acting on your behalf. You have a right to be informed about current dialysis treatments for kidney disease. This is what I talk about in my book, How to Survive Outpatient Hemodialysis. You're in a hospital. You go to the emergency room. You get diagnosed for kidney disease or kidney failure, and they got to start emergent dialysis. They get that situated. You get up to the floor. Now they put the permacath in. And now you got the case manager coming to your room right before you get discharged, asking where you live so they can find a clinic in your neighborhood. But not one time while you were in the hospital did someone come to you and talk about other treatment options that you can do other than outpatient dialysis. So now when you leave the hospital, you're going to the dialysis clinic in your neighborhood or 3 miles away, 5 miles away, or wherever. When if someone would have told you about home dialysis, right, or a transplant, you can start to activate certain things to put yourself in that position. You could be working. Now you're sitting in the hospital 6 days. You're in the hospital laying up. All kind of thoughts are going through your mind, racing through your mind. Now you've been diagnosed with kidney failure. You got to go on dialysis 3 days a week. And they didn't tell you for how long. So in your mind, you're like, shit, I wonder how long I got to go to dialysis. And you never ask the question. You think it could be temporarily because you still have some pee coming out. And they go, no, this is not temporary, they say. This is for life. And you're like, what? For life? You mean to tell me I got to go somewhere 3 days a week for the rest of my life? Yes. Is there any, Doc, is there anything else I could do? He's silent. Some doctors be silent. Some doctors, okay, yes, there is. But right now, let's get you, they come with this. But yes, there is. But right now, let's get you situated. And then we can talk about it later. No, I'm not promoting home dialysis. I'm talking about patients' rights at outpatient and their rights and know what rights they have so they don't fall in a position to get blackballed if they got a legitimate complaint. But yes, home dialysis, if you did home dialysis, you wouldn't have to deal with in-center issues, okay? But what I'm saying is that when you're in a hospital and you just get diagnosed with kidney failure, they don't tell you the treatment options. It kind of like it's like you go in the hospital, you sick, they find out you got kidney failure, put a temporary catheter in so we can do emergent dialysis. Now we're going to take the temporary catheter out and put a regular CVC hemodialysis catheter in so you can get maintenance hemodialysis. No one says anything about home dialysis. Like I said, you could be in a hospital. Now you're thinking about what you're going to do about your job. I've been working for 10, 15 years at a nice job. What I'm going to do? I don't have the time to take off. What I'm going to do? No one tells you that, oh, you can do home dialysis and you can fit dialysis around your work schedule, not have to go to outpatient and work your work schedule around dialysis. You see that? And so now, see, these doctors get paid more money when you go in center. The facility gets money and the doctor. Because now, instead of seeing them once a month, they got to come by the nurse practitioner. They get paid. Everybody's getting paid now. So you have a right to be informed about current dialysis treatment for kidney disease. That the reason why I said all that, because some patients don't know about transplants. Some patients don't know about home dialysis. You have a right to receive a complete review of any test results and treatment from your doctor or a member of the healthcare team. All right, and you have the right to be informed of any possible side effects of medications you are given. Point in case, how many patients right now go to in-center dialysis, right? And you get medication almost every treatment, whether it's Epogen, whether it's Zemplar, vitamin D, whether it's iron, right, for Licit or Vinifer, whether it's a antibiotic, vancomycin for infection, gentamicin, whatever. When the nurse comes to you, or when you started and they came to you to give you your medicine, did they tell you the side effects of the medicine? You know, you may get vancomycin for an infection and you start to itch. But did anybody tell you that it's a possibility you can itch if you get this medicine? This is what I'm saying. This generally doesn't happen. You go in for your dialysis and they give you the medicine and the nurse walks away. I know because I do it. Okay? So if you just start dialysis and when they start giving you medicine, ask questions. What are the side effects of the vitamin D? What are the side effects of the iron? What are the side effects of the erythropoietin, the Mircera, the Airnest, or the EPO? All right. You have a right to individual treatment. Now this is it. You have a right to be treated with dignity, respect, and consideration. This goes back to the example I used about the technician. The lady comes in an hour late, and the technician says to her out loud, other patients can hear it, "Are you serious, Charlotte?" You know, and the lady looked like, huh? And apparently the patient and this technician had issues in the past. As well as other issues with multiple patients, it can't be the patients. Why haven't you got rid of that technician that's still causing friction with patients? This is what this is saying. You have a right to dignity. Don't let any technician or nurse talk to you anyway. I don't care if you're late, you get off treatment early, or what. That's your business. If you got to get off, we don't recommend someone getting off dialysis early. But if you got something you got to do, because life happens. Life happens outside of dialysis. You may have to go take care of an emergency. And you get off early and you got the technician or nurse trying to guilt trip you. you got this much money. Try to do this. No, don't, stop with the guilt tripping. So you have a right to be treated with dignity, respect, and consideration. You have a right to suggest a change in the type of treatment. Yes, you have a right to suggest a change in the type of treatment you receive. If you don't want to stay in the clinic anymore for whatever reason, and you want to go home and do home dialysis, that's your right. And if that clinic doesn't have a home program, then you go find a clinic that has a home program. Don't feel, I've been coming here for years and I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings or whatever. No. These guys are making money off of you. You have a right. If you want to go home and do dialysis and be with your family, that's your right. Don't let no doctor or staff member guilt trip you into not going home saying, oh, you sure you can do it? Or you think you may? I don't think you this or that. No, let me find out on my own. You have a right to expect. You have a right to expect your kidney doctor and other members of your healthcare team to listen to you when you suggest changes in your dialysis treatment. Again, it goes back. If you're urinating and you feel like, hey, I can do 2 days a week, or you getting a lot of heparin and you bleeding, and I think I don't need that much heparin, or I think my dry weight has changed. You have a right to expect the doctor and the team to listen to you. Don't let them dismiss what you got to say as just trivial or like you don't know what you're talking about. Do your research. You have a right to expect that treatment will be tailored to your individual health needs. Now, this, again, you have a right to expect that treatment will be tailored to your individual health needs. Again, not everybody fits in the same box when it comes to dialysis treatment. I was telling the patient this the other day. They told me they still urinate a lot. I said, look, if you still urinate, right, and you urinating a lot, so instead they say you come 3 days a week and you do 3 hours, 3 times a week, why don't you suggest running 2 days a week at 4.5 hours? At 4.5 hours. If you did that, that's still 9 hours of treatment. That's still 9 hours of treatment. If you do 3 hours, 3 days a week, that's 9 hours right there of treatment. If you do 2 days a week at 4.5 hours, 4.5 plus 4.5 is 9. 5 and 5 is 10, carry the 1. 5 plus 4 is 9. That's the same amount of hours. You took away 1 day, but you increased your hours on the 2 days that you came. It's the same thing. You just tailored your treatment. What if you got something going on that you need that 1 day? Say if you Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you came Monday and Friday. Say you TTS, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. You did a Tuesday and a Saturday. All right, at 4.5 hours, this is an example. So I'm trying to get you to say, look, think of your situation. If you go to dialysis and how, if you still urinate, how you can tailor your treatment to fit your needs at that time. Also, you have a right to expect that the patient to staff ratio at your facility conforms to state regulations. What does that mean? You say, Steve, what did you just read? I have a right to expect that patient to staff ratio at my clinic conforms to state regulations. What does that mean? Let me tell you what that means. That means if you're at a place, right, that the staff is constantly short-staffed, you can have a technician that has 5 patients for one staff taking care of 5 dialysis patients. That's dangerous. You got some states that allow 7 to 1, 7 patients to 1 staff. It's already rough. Like in Maryland, where I'm at, it's 3 to 1. 3 patients to 1 staff. What does that mean? That means, so if I come in, I'm working the floor, I got Mr. Johnson, Mr. Jackson, and Miss Smith, my 3 patients. I'm putting 3 patients on first shift. I'm putting 3 patients on and taking them off second shift. I'm putting 3 patients on and putting them on third shift. Now, when you add 2 more patients to that ratio, that makes running these patients unsafe. Okay? And this is how these clinics get over reducing the staff, because that's the highest expenditure is staffing and supplies. So, okay, we can get 5 patients to 1 staff. So now we don't need to have 2 staff members to 6 patients, for 3 for this guy, 3 for this guy. We can just get these patients to 1 person. Now you got somebody rushing around. You can have 2 people coming off at the same time. I've seen it happen. Unit where I'm working, 4 to 1. Technician got 2 patients coming out at the same time. How can you take on 2 people at the same time? So now I got to come out on the floor and help out. But if I'm not there, or if you got a nurse that like bullshit, you do what you do, I got to do my job, right? And they don't help. So now you see, you may be a patient and you sitting back in your chair, right? You sitting there and you seeing, you maybe you got 30 minutes before you get off the machine, and you seeing everybody else come off, and you seeing people rushing here, going around the corner, you hear machines going off, and people like, damn, they looking like they running around with their heads cut off. This is what these companies, they create this type of environment. But patients, like if you don't understand your rights and your responsibilities, you won't know. Now you're thinking that's normal. But no, it's not. So again, if you at a unit and you see, someone taking care of you, and say you could be holding say they take you off, you hold and you finish, and you sitting there waiting for 20 minutes for somebody to come back and finish you up, when they putting somebody else on or taking somebody else off, you're like, damn, you was just with me. And now you taking care of somebody else? Yes, that happens. Also, you have a right to privacy and confidentiality. You have a right to expect privacy receiving medical care. You have a right to expect examinations and discussions about your care to be held in private. You have a right to expect that your personal medical information will be kept confidential. Now, how is that when if you got the doctor, you see when you're in the dialysis clinics and you see how close the chairs are together. Now, when the doctor comes in, so let's say you have a doctor that has a loud mouth, or he just projects his voice, or his tone is very loud, like how I'm doing now. And somebody's sitting right next to you, and they can hear your conversation with the doctor. That's no privacy. That's no privacy. If someone else can hear your conversation with your nephrologist, that's no privacy, okay? You have a right to service without discrimination. You have a right to expect medical care without regard to your race, color, gender, sexual preference, religion, or natural origins. You have a right to treatment options, again, which a lot of patients don't get. A lot of patients don't get the treatment options. I know patients that never heard of home dialysis or transplant until 2 years into their treatment. Are you kidding me? Someone on dialysis didn't know about home dialysis or transplant until 2 years after they got on dialysis. Let that sink in. Okay? Because if you just started dialysis and you wanted to continue to work, but no one said anything about home dialysis, and you quit your job or retired prematurely on the strength that no one could accommodate your schedule, your work schedule, or you can't get the shift you needed to continue working. Now you had to all of a sudden prematurely stop working, and that's something that you love to do, and now you start working. That's going to impact your income for you, especially if you're the breadwinner. And then you do that, and then say a year later, after you done did the deed, you done pulled the trigger, and now you're not working, you're on disability, and now you come to find out that you could have still been working all along. Could have still been working. But because of greed, because they get more money by you coming in center, because if you go out, if you go home, you're taking away the revenue. You're taking away the revenue from the clinic. So now, a year later, now you find out about home dialysis after you done pulled the trigger and quit your job or retired. Like, come on now. What kind of bullshit is that? And I know somebody this happened to. So when I talk and say so, I'm speaking facts, experience that people this happened to. People who have families. And it's mostly blacks. Truth be told. But, you know, the truth is the truth. Yes, kidney disease affects all races. That is true. However, people of color are impacted twice as much as any other race. It's a fact. You can see it. You go into the dialysis clinics, you'll see the majority of, if not all the chairs, the majority are packed and filled with blacks. It's the truth. Because of the disparity of this disease has created, you got Blacks represent 13.2% of the overall population of the United States. But they account for more than 32% of people on kidney dialysis. Go figure that out. Go figure it out. We represent more people on dialysis and races, but only 13.2% in the whole country. All right, you have a right to treatment options. You have a right to receive a full explanation of all treatment options for kidney disease. This is what I'm saying when you're in a hospital and no one says shit. You don't know. Only thing you know is you're going to go to an outpatient dialysis center. You don't know nothing about home dialysis, but you have that right to be informed, but no one informs you. So there's no entity that's policing companies to make sure that you are being informed of these rights. Yes, when you start dialysis, you get a thick packet, the admission packet. You go in there, you're signing your life away. You're signing that you understand about dialysis. You're signing that you know that infiltration and infection can happen. You're signing liability that if they mess up your arm, you can't sue them. If they mess you up, that's what that consent form is. So if something happens to you, that's what I'm saying. If something happens to you, you gotta keep records, meticulous records. If you start cramping, this day I cramp. This day I cramp. And let me tell you why you want to write this down. Because you may need your dry weight adjusted. Right? You may need your dry weight adjusted, and your dry weight been one way for this long, and you're cramping. You don't know why you're cramping. And then, but if you leave out a certain weight, you're not cramping no more. But when people, if they don't change your dry weight, the doctor or someone, a nurse practitioner, and the staff see that your dry weight is, say, 125, but when you get down to 125 or close to 125, you're getting sick and having cramps. But if you leave out at 126.5, you feel good. You can run marathons. You can do this. You can do that. But no one changed the order. But you cramping and cramping, you write that down. So it could possibly be, if something ever happened, you pass out, whatever, because they're trying to get you to a weight that you don't feel good at, and you've been asking for the doctor to change the weight and they don't never change it. That could possibly be a negligence case. So that's why you got to write this stuff down. Whatever happens to you in the unit. Your kidney clots. You got to go. So again, you have a right to receive full explanation of all treatment options for kidney disease, including their advantages and disadvantages. You have a right to receive full explanation, right, of the kidney transplant process, including all transplant options. You have a right to select the transplant center at which you desire to have a transplant evaluation after consultation with the nephrologist. You have a right to be informed of new advances in home care and have the opportunity to make a change to that treatment option. You have a right to receive listen to this. You have a right to receive educational materials about new procedures for in-home care. Now, how many of you guys go to dialysis receive educational material about your treatment. That's why I do these shows here. Because a lot of times these companies are not giving out any educational material. Or the ones they do give out, most of the time the patients may see it, they may not understand it and ball it up and throw it in the trash. You have a right to receive follow-up care through dietary, social work, and nursing service. You have a right to receive information about dialysis facilities that offer home dialysis. So this is what I'm saying. That's what I said in the beginning. If you want to go home dialysis and that unit doesn't offer it, you have a right to receive information on other clinics in the area that may offer home dialysis. They're going to tell you some bull crap because they don't want you to leave, because again, you're taking away the revenue. You're taking away the revenue from the clinic. They're not going to tell you that. They're not going to say, oh, you don't want to go home dialysis because if you go to home dialysis, you're taking away our revenue. No, they may say stuff like, you sure you want to do this? This may not be the best option for you. Do you have anybody that can help you? Start saying things that can get you to start thinking, well, maybe you're right. Maybe it's not for me. Okay? You have a right to receive information about dialysis facility. Oh, I already said that. Number 7, emergency care. You have a right to receive emergency medical care without unnecessary delay. All right. You have a right to be informed by the dialysis facility about their emergency plan in case of a disaster, i.e., snowstorm, fire, loss of power. That's why I came on in the beginning of this broadcast and said what I said. I'm not at home where I have access to my educational information about emergency preparedness, but go to our Urban Health Outreach Media Facebook page, Urban Health Outreach Media Facebook page, Urban Health Outreach Media Facebook page, and go under videos and look for emergency preparedness to watch a pre-recorded broadcast I did on that topic. But with that being said, again, if you're in the wake of this snowstorm or any emergency, or any not snowstorm, but any disaster weather, did the facility give you information on what to do? They may have, they may not have, but you have to be aware of an emergency plan, preparedness plan. That facility may close down. If they close down because the staff want to run the machines, so they don't open. So now they have, what they do is they a lot of times they give the patient a prescription for what's called K-Xlate. And K-Xlate is a liquid. It's just like a binder. You drink it and it binds the potassium, and you eliminate the potassium through your stools. Okay? And they only tell you to take it if you can't make it to dialysis. So that's why you got to have a plan in place, because you never know when disaster may strike. Okay? You have a right to be informed of the facility's plan of action in case of medical and health emergencies. All right. You have a right to dietary counseling. All right. You have a right to social work services. Now, again, with Mrs. Lomax, as I said, let me go back. She originally complained about the social worker tried to get her Medicaid taken away, or I'm sorry, stopped for private transportation services. And Mrs. Lomax called the state and complained about that. Now here it says social work services. You have a right to receive counseling from a qualified social worker according to federal and state law. You have a right to receive an evaluation and follow-up care, including a vocational rehabilitation review. And you have a right to receive referrals to community services when needed. This lady needed services, and the social worker was trying to get the Medicaid cut for those services. This lady said she had amputated toes. And we know how one's walk or their gait or posture, depending on how many toes you had amputated, that can affect your gait or the way you walk. And look how this lady, I don't want to say she looks old or anything like that, but she looks to be like in her 70s, late 70s. Okay, she got a reprieve, but she had to go the news. Okay, the news station, her council member, and other activists to make this happen. But what about other patients who fall in this category that doesn't have the representation that Mrs. Lomax had? What happens to them? For the most part, a lot of them die, but you won't hear about it unless you knew the person. It's just like another day in the neighborhood for dialysis. Okay, and look, and then I'll be finished. You have a right to facility management. That means you have a right to expect the dialysis facility to employ skilled staff and provide safe, clean, comfortable, and professional surroundings. Bar none. I worked in the facility, the heat was out. And it's cold throughout the building. I'm walking around. If I'm walking around the building with my hat on all day, it's cold. And if I'm cold, the patient's got to be cold. You're on the machine, the temperature of the machine may be set to 35.5, 35.6. That's cold. And a lot of times, a lot of patients don't know this. If your blood pressure is low, the staff sometimes turn your temperature down on the machine. That's why I say you got to be your own advocate. Because you got techs that will, and in return, if you shiver, your pressure's going to go up. So, but you have clinics that the heat went out and the patients are cold, have the patient complaining about being cold. This is what this is talking about. They need to remediate that immediately. Whether they get the heat fixed or get portable heaters in there, they need to do something ASAP. But this is what this is saying. You have, when it comes under facility management, you have a right to expect the facility to, or I said that, you expect, again, you expect the dialysis facility to employ skilled staff. Again, a new person that's in training is not skilled yet. And provide safe, clean. How many units you been into that wasn't clean? Bicarb powder all over the floor, trash all over the floor, gloves on the floor. Like, I don't know. You know, you be at your facility, you can see it. Bio waste trash spilling out, gloves, you know, staff take off their gloves. You see us going through hundreds of gloves, right? We got the gloves on. You know, after we put you on, do what we do, right? Got the gloves on, then we take them off, and you see them take them off, and they throw them and come back and do the same thing. So you got to be very active in your care and be proactive to know what's going on. All right? Seriously. You have a right to expect the facility to make every effort to make you comfortable and give you your and give you your treatment on time. You give your treatment on time. How many times you been to treatment and they were starting off late because the nurse was late or this or that? All right. According to a schedule that meets your special needs whenever possible. You have a right to expect the facility to monitor the quality of treatment and equipment according to regulations. The formal complaint process. You have a right to make a complaint to your facility management and request that they try to resolve the problem. That's if you have an issue with a tech, a nurse, or anybody at the facility. You have a right to say something and get remedial action on that. You have a right to ask and be instructed on your dialysis facility's grievance process. You have a right to file a complaint with the End-Stage Renal Disease Network, which they don't do nothing in the region. But you can also do the state as well. I recommend contacting the state in an attempt to resolve a problem. Now, let's talk about you have a right to refusal, advance directives, and end-of-life care. All right? You have a right to make decisions about your health care based on the information given to you by your kidney doctor. You have a right to complete an advance directive stating your wishes. You have a right to be informed by your kidney doctor of the possible results of refusing drugs, treatments, or procedures. You have a right to be informed of how the facility handles end-of-life needs. You have a right to refuse. Listen to this. You have a right to refuse any drugs, treatments, or procedures offered to you. So if you don't want iron because of the way it tastes, you don't have to get iron, right? Just like this Liquid Seal, this protein drink. A lot of patients don't like the way this tastes. And a lot of patients have refused to drink it. I can't make you drink this. Only thing I can do is prepare it based on the orders and bring it to you. You say, I don't want it. I throw it away. But you have a right to refuse this or refuse any drugs that you're getting at dialysis, okay? You have a right to indicate your refusal in writing. You have a right to accept full responsibility for the medical outcomes of your refusal. You have a right for medical consultation. You have a right to request consultation with another doctor for any kidney or non-kidney related problem. So if you go to a surgeon, like if your kidney doctor recommended you to a surgeon and this surgeon butchered your arm, right? He effed up your arm and you like pissed off and you want to go to another surgeon, you had that right for a second opinion. If you don't like your kidney doctor, you have a right to go talk to another kidney doctor. So don't let them guilt trip you if you want to seek alternative consultation, try to guilt trip you into not doing that. You have a right to know that payment for consultation may not be covered under Medicare or other healthcare coverage, and you may be responsible for payment. All right, treatment costs, because this is a big one. In some places, they try to get rid of patients for lack of payment. So we know if you do Medicare, Medicare pays 80%. The patient is responsible for the other 20%. Okay? Now, treatment costs. You have a right to receive a full explanation of all charges by the facility and the doctor. You may get your bill and see something on there that you're like, wait a minute, I ain't never seen a doctor. But yet, you see his bill, but you never seen him in a month. You just seen the nurse practitioner. And that's not the doctor. You have a right to be informed about your financial responsibilities after Medicare or Medicaid and or other healthcare insurance coverage prior to receiving treatment. And also you have a right to obtain assistance about how you can pay your bill and about programs available to you. So, of course, if they have your rights and your rights as a patient, they're going to have what your responsibilities are as a patient. Now, tonight, I'm not going to go through this, but on Tuesday night, when we talked to Larry Keith Hall, the patient who took DeVita to court and won his case. He won his case. Now, I want to let him share his whole story. But you know what I say about patients? If they get blackballed, they had to go to the emergency room and they won't treat you unless your numbers are critical. Well, that's not the case for Larry. Larry goes straight to the hospital 3 days a week and gets his treatment. He gets all his treatment through a court order. So they can't do that. To do right where they can try to get you put out is it's your responsibility to be on time. That's one of them. They say it's your responsibility to make every effort to be on time for your scheduled dialysis. It's your responsibility to tell a facility ahead of time if you are unable to attend your next treatment date. It's your responsibility to understand that your treatment may be shortened if you arrive late. So that's what I was saying, one of my broadcasts, where if you come to dialysis and you're supposed to run 4 hours and you got to work, and say the shift starts, they want you to be there at 3, but you don't get off to 3 o'clock and you can't get there to 4. Well, when you get there, they're not going to run you 4 hours. they're going to cut your time. Whenever the last patient comes off, that's when you coming off. We do it all the time. It's unfortunate. If the patient is late, if they say they give you a treatment time, like you're supposed to be there at 4 o'clock. Now, let's say you're supposed to be there at 2 o'clock. Your chair time is at 2. And again, when you sign those consent forms, you saying you're going to be there. But if you know you're not going to be there at 2, this is what they're saying. It's your responsibility to let them know you're not going to be on time or whatever. But let's say you get there, you don't got no phone, you can't contact them. Instead of 2 o'clock, you get there at 3 o'clock, 3:30. So if you run 3.5 hours and you're supposed to be there at 2 and your chair's waiting for you, and you get on at 2, that means you get off at 5:30. You get there at 3 o'clock, 3:30, you're still going to get off at 5:30. They're not going to run you your whole time. So, and then they say you have a right to be considerate. You have a right to treat other patients and staff members with respect, dignity, and consideration. So if they got to give it, you're supposed to give it back in return. You have responsibility to never threaten others. That gets you in trouble. When you lodge a threat, that's when they can put you out the clinic. But immediate out the clinic if you threaten somebody. Act in a violent manner or cause any physical harm is immediate discharge, guys. So let me get to the doctors. They have a tough choice because say if you have a patient that has a mental condition, we know that say if someone is schizophrenia, that's a mental condition, and they can still get kidney disease. You can have a mental condition before kidney disease and still get kidney disease. You can be bipolar and still get kidney disease. Okay? Now, on top of having bipolar illness, now you got to deal with the mental illness behind kidney disease. And now again, if you have a patient that cusses a doctor out because they don't like the care that they give the doctor or whatever, that doctor can discharge that patient because he probably feel threatened. I've seen it happen many times. And a lot of times, especially like down in the South, where you have white doctors, older white doctors, you may have younger Black males who are frustrated, who may be lack of resources, finances, and everything else. And they're going through this and they feel like the doctor's not listening to what they're saying. And, all this shit can build up and they can explode. Cuss the doctor out, threaten the doctor, oh, you ain't shit, this and that. Doctor feels threatened, especially if he's the medical director of that clinic. He can say, I don't want to treat this patient no more. And what do you do when you have these type of patients that can disrupt the operations? What do you do? Hold on. And they have wait a minute. They got guidelines. Certain organizations have guidelines for this to happen, but these companies don't have to follow the guidelines. They march to the beat of their own tune. So they're saying that in some of these organizations that have guidelines, they're saying that involuntary discharge should be the last option. It's saying that all efforts to resolve the problems have failed. Like if they need to discharge a patient, that they exhausted all efforts to resolve the problem, and the issue and intervention to address them have been properly documented. And they say this, the unit should assist the patient in finding a unit. But if it's another DaVita, if you getting discharged from one DaVita or Fresenius, and this town or city where you're at ain't nothing but DaVita or Fresenius, where you going to go? I mean, you see what I'm saying? So here go the policies in place. They're suggesting have a policy and procedure in place for involuntary discharges. They're saying it is the medical director's, all right, the medical director's responsibility to ensure that no patient is discharged or transferred from the facility unless, here we go with the issues, unless the patient or payer no longer reimburses the facility for the ordered services. The facility ceases to operate. The transfer is necessary for the patient's welfare because the facility can no longer meet patients' documented medical needs. And finally, the facility has reassessed the patient and determined the patient's behavior is disruptive and abusive to the extent in which the delivery of care to the patient or the ability of the facility to operate effectively is seriously impaired. Now they can frame that up like whatever's happening, complaint and document stuff to make it look like you're disrupting the facility. Now, how could this lady be such a problem that it could fall in that last category? Because that's what they said, that this lady, when they was going to discharge Oral Lomax, if you go read the article, you just Google patient being kicked out of dialysis center in Virginia, something to that line, you can read the short story. She fell under the facility has reassessed the patient and determined the patient's behavior is disruptive and abusive to the extent in which the delivery of care of the patient or the ability of the facility to operate effectively is seriously impaired. Either that one or the third one, the transfer is necessary for the patient's welfare because the facility can no longer meet the patient's documented medical needs. How can facility for 12 years, how can they no longer meet her medical needs? You see what I'm saying? So this happens. I was on here longer than expected, but we're going to seriously talk about this issue with Larry Keith Hall Tuesday, December the 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, who won his court case. He sued them. He got discharged. They did everything to harass this man. They effed up his arm. He's going to tell you all about it. They use, if you a dialysis warrior, you know those sharp needles that we use to put in your arm. Well, they got these other needles called blunt needles that they use for buttonhole accesses, something totally different. They jacked up his arm using a blunt needle. A blunt needle. This is how all this started, for the most part. And Larry's going to share his story, how he got kicked out, had to go to the emergency room. They wouldn't accept him unless his levels were critical. Now, he had fluid overload in his lungs, couldn't breathe. But through the grace of God, he lived. He obtained a lawyer. He sued, and he won his case. And we're going to talk about that Tuesday, December 27th at 8 o'clock. I got so many comments. Thank you, Margaret. Camille, I'm looking at my comments on my Facebook and YouTube. Then I'm going to read try to read most of the TikTok comments before I get off of here. Page 20, because I didn't qualify for Medicare. So Camille, let me go start. So Camille says that I purchased a Medicare Gap plan that pays the 20% because I didn't qualify for Medicaid, but no one informed me. She found out on her own. They don't tell you about this stuff, guys. Medicare Gap plan pays the 20% for around $125 a month if you don't qualify for Medicaid. So thank you, Camille. So Camille from my YouTube, if you guys haven't subscribed to my YouTube page on TikTok, please go to my YouTube page, hit the subscribe button, Steve the Kidney Nurse, so you can be informed when I go live. But Camille Pentuso says she got Medicare Gap and pays the 20%. So you can get a bill for, like, Medicare pays the 80%, you get the 20%. That 20% can be thousands of dollars. Thousands that can add up over the years. You know, you get the bill, you just throw it to the side. I ain't paying that shit. I ain't got no money to be paying that. Or you may be paying like $20, $30 a month or whatever you can afford. Now there's something where you can check into if you got $125, or you can get that Medicare Gap to pay that other part. Let's see what Margaret says. Hey, Margaret, one of my supporters. Margaret says, they will cut your time. I had to go to surgery to get graft unclogged. Went to dialysis, got off a little early because other patients had a time. That's crazy. See, when you got to get unclogged, you come in for your treatment, and they may not run you for your whole time because you may run into another shift. So they're going to cut your treatment time so they can get the other patient on. So, like, what the heck? Like, you cut my time for another person's time. You see how it works? Margaret says, I prefer to go to the hospital for treatment. Monica Cooper, thank you for our comment. Monica Cooper says, love you, brother. I have admired your work ever since Tori Rose introduced me to you. Thank you, Monica. I appreciate that. Peace and blessings to you. That's been a while. I wonder how Tori is doing. Yeah, and that was way before COVID when I was out in the community. But thank you for commenting and following my work. I appreciate you. Yeah, we got a lot of people. Rachel says, funny, I had a power outage last night. I was on the well, 3 or 5 at the time. I realized there was no way to restart my treatment cycler. LOL, I sure didn't want to start over again. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing that. Again, this goes to what I was talking about with this snowstorm that's going to impact a lot of people in the country. If you do home dialysis or go to dialysis, especially home dialysis, if you can afford it, get a generator. If you can afford it, get a generator. So if your power goes out, you can crank that generator up and continue your treatment. However, Rachel, also you can, and other people who are doing a cycler for home PD, have a pole, right? And supplies. So if that happens, you can do manual treatment. You can get off because the power's gone. You got your hanging pole and you got your supplies to do a manual treatment. If you don't have the generator, you can do a manual treatment for PD. But if you're on home hemo, you're going to need that electricity. So I definitely recommend, if you can afford it, get a generator. Hey, Matthew Novelli, please be careful tomorrow morning. Yes, wherever you're at, if you go to dialysis tomorrow morning, make sure before you go, if you live in the state that's being impacted by this snowstorm, make sure before you leave out, or even tonight, to look at the news and look for the roving ticker banner, or even if they let you know what clinics are open or closed. Okay, because again, dialysis clinics do let you know if they intend to be open or not, so you can prepare. This is why having an emergency preparedness plan in place in case this happens. What I mean by emergency preparedness plan, having the prescription for K-Xlate, which is a sorbitol solution that you drink that binds the potassium in your gut so you can eliminate it out of your bowels. Having the food that's low in potassium, having food that you eat, 3-day meal plan that's low sodium, having distilled water, battery operated radio, flashlight with batteries, candles, maybe having a backup battery pack for your cell phone, making sure your cell phone is charged now while you got electricity. Maybe getting some sour balls or candy so it doesn't make you, have you thirsty, and having your treatment orders in case you need to evacuate. And, most importantly, watching your food that's in potassium, having extra medicine, just being well prepared ahead of time. So, the discussion, which I mainly talked about, was this patient almost getting kicked out. All right, she didn't know what was going to happen, but she was on the brink. She got a reprieve, and she was able to stay. However, since this article, and we also talked about the snowstorm that's impacting major parts of the country, and I think that's very important as well. I wanted to try to tie in both of them because I didn't want to not mention anything about emergency preparedness, being that thousands or hundreds of patients are possibly going to be impacted tomorrow, even tonight, with this weather. Now, I wanted to share this story because this is a phenomenon that's happening a lot across the United States, of patients getting involuntary discharge, can't find a unit because no unit will accept them. Now they got to go to dialysis at a hospital, and when they go to the hospital, they're being turned away because their numbers are not critical. Okay, the numbers are not critical, but you could be fluid overload. They don't care about that. All right, you almost have to be like about to die for them to do dialysis on you. Margaret says she have a chair time of 5:30 in the morning. See? And let me tell you something. A lot of times, well, I ain't gonna say a lot of times, there's times when, for the most part, everything goes like clockwork in the dialysis unit. But there are times when we encounter problems and can't start on time. And that's when the nurse, the charge nurse, should come out in the patient lobby and explain the situation and let the patients know. Don't be sitting in the back and nobody knows what's going on. Patient knocking on the door trying to figure out what's going on. You got to inform them, let them know what's going on, what the plan is, and go from there. God, thank you, Camilla. Merry Christmas to you as well. Let me see what I can't, the TikTok comments are saying, because it's a lot. It's a lot. Damn. Professionals get sick and die too and have to face all the legal alphabetical agencies. Yeah. As if you're the problem. These people are wicked. Karma will. Yeah. I mean, the people working in dialysis these days, for the most part, mean well. But you got people, handful of people that's working that shouldn't be working in dialysis, just like any other job. People shouldn't be working if they don't like it. You can't blame a patient for something that they have no control of. Like if you catch public transportation or transportation comes and pick you up and they break down, or they pick somebody else up that's holding them up from picking you up, that's not your fault. And you arrive at the clinic late, that's not your fault that they got you there late. Okay, and then when they get you there late, then now they cutting your time. And you remember I had a show about shortening treatment time, how all that can add up. But that's not, now if you come to dialysis and the facility starts late, meaning we have water issues, because that's mostly the main thing, water issues or machine issues. And then once we get that resolved and we started late, we have to run you, okay, your whole time. A lot of time, what may happen is they say, okay, you have the option. They don't tell you we have to run you your whole time, but they give you the option and say, do you want to get off at your regular treatment time? You see, you said for you, do you want to get off? So that puts it in your mind. Yeah, I want to get off at my regular time, like I always do. Like if you start at 5:30, like Margaret says, her chair time is 5:30. So let's just say Margaret is let's just say Margaret's 4 hours. If her treatment time starts at 5:30 and she gets on at 5:30, that means she'll get off at around 9:30, say 9:35, 9:40, right? Now Margaret, she's on my Facebook, and she commented. So if y'all say, who's Margaret? That's what I'm talking about. I'm looking at her comment here on the broadcast. If we start late, like say at 6:30 or 7, Margaret is entitled to still run her 4 hours, even though it's going to affect second shift and then it'll affect third shift. But what happens, the staff would say, do you want to come off or at your regular time or run your full time? And of course, somebody hear that, I want to get off on my regular time. Okay, you get off at your regular time. So you're supposed to get off at 9:30, right? and you get on at 7:30, you're only getting 2 hours of your 4-hour treatment, and they still going to charge you the same amount of money as if you ran your 4 hours. Not meaning that they get paid based on the hours you run, but you want to get your money's worth. If you're supposed to get 4 hours of treatment and it wasn't your fault that you started late, why not get your treatment time and give them the satisfaction of getting off at your regular time so they can accommodate somebody else? That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Or they give them the option to come back at a later time if they got a chair. If I was a patient, it's no way in hell if you late because the water system effed up and you telling me that I had the option of getting off early because it was your fault or running my whole time, which I'm allowed, I'm going to run my time. I'm going to run my time. I'm going to get my full treatment. My life is on the line. I can give a damn about your water system or second shift patients. I want my full time. That's what my insurance pays for. That's what the doctor said my treatment time is, and you were late. I want my full time because if I was late, you damn sure going to slice the time. If I was an hour late, you're going to cut an hour off my treatment. If you are an hour late, you want to offer me options. You want to offer me options of getting off early or running my time if you even tell me I could run my full time. Look how backwards that sounds. And this is why I try to thought-provoking conversations. If you're a patient, think about that. If you're late for unknown reasons that are not your fault, you're late. They want to cut your time. That means if you're working and if you can't, you got to make money, right? You got to work if you know, but if you can't work it out with your job to get off early, you got to get off. You get off at the time you get off, and they can't accommodate you at the unit. And when you get there, they always cutting your time. That adds up. But when they're late, they want to throw in options. Oh, you want to get off at your proposed time that you're going to get off if you got on time, which still cuts your treatment time. They don't want to tell you about, oh, you can run your full time because we were at fault. They don't want to tell you that because it's going to disrupt operations. It's going to make them stay longer and they don't want to be there. Exactly. That's why I say you do home or PD. But this show is not to advertise that, but just to say, know your rights. Know your rights. As a patient, you can go to your packet that they give you, your admission packet from dialysis when you first sign the paperwork. It's in there, patient's rights and responsibilities. And a lot of people don't look at that because the first day they don't feel well. They just want to get on and get their treatment and get back home. And they put the papers away and forget about it. Yeah, exactly. I don't think they like us as blacks because they can't retaliate if we complain. I don't think they like us as blacks because they can. Exactly. And that's what Larry is going to be talking about on Tuesday. Make sure you tune in. Blue Age Swag. Matter of fact, go to my YouTube page and subscribe, or my Facebook page, Steve the Kidney Nurse, so you can be notified for Tuesday, December the 27th. We're going to have Larry Keith Hall talking about that, because most of the time, the people who are getting put out of the units, and this is impacting, are male blacks between 18 and 44. Bar none. If blacks complain, they're going to retaliate and try to get you out. And I've seen this many times before I became an advocate and really didn't understand it. And now I know. So I thank you guys for joining my live. Got 60 people. Thank you guys. Peace and blessings to you. I got my transplant. All right. Knowledge for your soul. So shout out to Knowledge for Your Soul, who got a transplant on my TikTok page. God bless you. Congratulations to you, Steve. You're talking about people who have no honor, no integrity, no soul. The paper is just. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that Mrs. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. What? The person that said that misrespect. Yeah, you're right. I even got dogged out by these for DaVita, you know, and I worked for them for almost 19 years off and on. And the moment I injured my back on their property because they had leakage of solution from a pipe that leaked into the employee's locker room, and I slipped when I was rushing to the bathroom, and I could no longer do my charge nurse duties at that time, they're going to try to cut my time. Now, who can make... Now, you got a nurse that's working 60 hours a week, right? And at the time, my pay was about $90,000 a year, okay? $90,000 a year as a charge nurse. Now, imagine going from 60 hours a week. They cut my time to 10 to 13 hours a week. And that had to be approved for me to work 10 to 13 hours a week. I'm reduced to 10 to 13 hours a week. I still got my house payment, my car payment, other bills. Now, how they going to expect me to pay my bills off of 10 to 13 hours a week doing paperwork? And that had to be approved. So if they do the employees like that, what do you think they're going to do to patients? Some of the people have no soul who run these operations. So you got the whole company that's behind them and don't change their culture. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And some of you may know, like, how do you go? So some of you may know what this is. This is an emesis basin, right? For when patients get sick, nauseated, and got to vomit, we give them this bowl. And so, they throw up in the bowl. Sometimes, depending on if they vomit and it's projectile, it can go over the bowl, okay? Or whatever. But for the most part, when a person throw up, it goes in the bowl, in this basin. And so in this basin, there's numbers like a cc side and an ounce size. So it goes from 100, 200, 3, 4. So patient throws up, you can measure the amount of vomit or emesis that they threw up. You know, the patient vomited 300 cc's of undigested food. But now they go into this, like an emesis bag. It went from this to this. And if you see how round this is, it's nothing like the wide. I mean, even though it goes into a bag, it's ridiculous. It's like, I can't believe it. They have it folded up like this. If you got to throw up, or some places, if they don't have neither of these, because they may have ran out or don't care, they give you a trash bag, or they give you the trash can from the floor and put it up to you so you can throw up in there. How unsanitary is that? So it's a lot. It's a lot in dialysis that has to be put in perspective with these nephrologists. They can't just talk to patients any way they want. You know, if you don't agree or if you want to change something of your treatment, whatever, they're going to say you're non-compliant. So please be very vigilant of what's going on in your dialysis clinic. Document, document, document. Whatever's going on. If your kidney clotted, document it clotted, because maybe it clotted because they didn't give you the heparin that you was ordered. All right. If you've been running your treatment with no problems, and then all of a sudden you start having these problems with clotting and all this, maybe somebody's forgetting your heparin, they rushing or something. You need to document this so if something really happens, you have your documentation, because they don't go on hearsay. If it's not documented, as they do in nursing, if it's not documented, it wasn't done. He said, yeah, I gave the medicine, but did you document you gave it? So I think Saturday, we're going to see, I want to reassess and see how the storm system is, if it's still going on. I may do another emergency preparedness show on Saturday, but I want to do another show on Saturday and talk about a lot of stuff that people don't know about at dialysis. Let me turn the green screen off so you can see this product. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff that we use in dialysis that patients that go to dialysis may not even seen or know about. This thing is, for one, it's a recirculation cap. This right here. We use this like if the patient had to go to the bathroom and we return their blood, right? We gotta, so, my YouTube and Facebook, the internet here is really crappy. So make sure you join my YouTube when I get back home to DC. I got great reception. This right here, you hook in one line here and one line there to connect, to recirculate. So I'm going to be talking about stuff like this, and then this. This is a culture. This is a culture. And while we use these, if you got a catheter or you got an access that may be draining pus, right? We'll take this. It's got a stick in it with a Q-tip swab, And then we got a thing that has a medium that we stick the swab in. Wait a minute. So say if you come to dialysis and you got a catheter and you got chills, or you got an access, you got chills, and you got some drainage from that, what we'll do, like say you got a catheter, right? And they take the bandage off when they get ready to clean it, and the tech may see some drainage coming out of it. And if you got a temperature, infection brewing. So the technician should come tell the nurse, and I'll come over and look at it, right? And what I'll do is go get the culture, right? Open it up, and then I'll put this part, the Q-tip, and swab the drainage. Could be pus, thick pus, green, yellow. I'll put this on it, rub it around so I can get it on the Q-tip swab, and then we open this up and stick this down into the medium so it can do what it do as far as the growth, the bacteria and the medium, to see what microorganism is going to grow from that. And then if something grows, like if it's positive, they'll send the results back and say what antibiotics are sensitive, whatever. Say if it's Staphylococcus aureus, they'll send back a sensitivity and reactivity report of what antibiotics that staph is sensitive to or resist. It's a resistant or sensitivity report. So whatever that, it may be resistant to vancomycin or gentamicin, or it may be sensitive to what's that other antibiotic? Ancef or something like that. So it tells us what medicine will work and what medicine won't work. And based on that, the doctor says, okay, give a gram of Vanco, or give 80 milligrams of gentamicin, or whatever the case may be. And then that's how we give you the antibiotics. But it all starts from the technician, okay? It all starts from the person taking care of you. And when they should be changing your dressing every treatment. And the reason we change it so we can see if it's clean, or if you got any drainage coming from it, or if it's infected or whatever. If they don't do that, then we can't do our job. So they see that, report it, I come, swab it, send it on to the lab, call the doctor. Hey, patient was draining thick yellow pus. They got a temperature of 100. They shivering, got chills. I already drew the culture. They may ask for blood cultures as well. So we get blood culture come in these bottles. We draw your blood out the line, put them in the culture, aerobic, anaerobic. That's one set. Then 15 minutes later, we're coming back. We're drawing another set, aerobic, anaerobic. Send them out along with the culture. Tells us what germ you have in your blood or what's growing in that culture. Give you the antibiotics, you feel well. But if the technicians, they don't see that, or if they don't take action and clean your dressing, then we won't know. So that's why we're saying be vigilant, be proactive of your treatment, ask questions. I don't care what they say. This is your body, right? It's your treatment. You have a right to be informed. I went over. You have all these rights that a lot of patients are not, don't realize. So don't be embarrassed or feel afraid to ask questions, make suggestions to your doctor, because you had that right to be involved with your care team. So with that being said, Raymond, I'm going to sign off on the Facebook. Then we'll talk to you guys for a little bit. Then I got to go. But yeah, guys, tune in this Tuesday, December the 27th at 8 p.m. as I have a frank and brief interview and discussion with Larry Keith Hall, dialysis patient out of Wilmington, North Carolina, who won. I don't even want to use the word landmark because I don't know if he's the first person that won this case, but I'm going to call it landmark in the fact that he is able to go to the hospital and get his treatment 3 days a week, his regular time, and don't have to wait for levels to get to critical conditions where he could possibly die before even making it to the hospital. Margaret, I appreciate you. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you. I appreciate your support. Anytime you need to reach out to me for anything, any suggestions or comments, concerns, please hit my inbox. In fact, I'll send you my number through Facebook inbox. Yeah. So, because I know you go to outpatient, and if you see something that you think ain't right, or you got questions about and you don't want to ask the people at the facility, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and ask me my thoughts and concerns about it. So, wait a minute, guys. I'm going to sign off on my live feed. Hey, Federico, Merry Christmas to you as well. Federico Aquino. Thank you, brother. So, guys, I want to sign off to Facebook and YouTube. Been on it like 2 hours and 20 minutes. So, again, join me Tuesday. It's going to be a great show. It's going to be a great interview. And the stuff you hear from this brother and what he got to tell you about his experience and how they try to do him in is unfreaking believable. You would never think a dialysis corporation would attempt to do stuff that they did to this brother. That's this Tuesday, December 22nd, 8 o'clock. See you guys there. Thanks, Margaret and Camille, Monica, Christian, for joining. There was some other people on here. Sanaa, I'm a retired RN and therefore the worst patient. I make them tell all. Absolutely. Thank you for joining. Hey, Kathy, thank you for joining. Thank you guys for tuning in. Federico, Chris Ann Hernandez, how you doing? Teresa Murphy. Thank you guys for joining. Rachel. Again, Matthew, Novelli. Thank you guys for watching. And again, join me Tuesday night. Man, you ain't going to believe this brother's story. I kid you not. You are not going to believe it. And this will give heed to other people who may be going through a similar situation and what you can do if you find yourself in this situation of possibly getting put out for no fault of your own, but because of legitimate complaints you may have. For the emergency preparedness plan, stay safe, stay blessed and encouraged, and have a great night. God bless you all. Peace.
Warriors around, don't get caught in the mosh pit. Fuel to the fire, ain't nobody can stop it. Trouble in my city, but you know I'm across it. Got a 40 on my hip and I'm liable to spark it. Throw down these hits, my click is indivisible. I aim, you duck, I squeeze, now you invisible. I'm not afraid of getting physical. All these different chemicals are fogging up my visuals. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Yo, we notorious, we ain't no runners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Yo, we some warriors, they ain't called runners. the map, put on my team, take out every motherfucker in between. Know what I mean? Better myself, better my aim, better my rap, better my name. Killing rappers on my hang, I'm by their chains for the fame. Never thought I would it, now I'm running. You don't wanna follow me, no